In this video, I'll be covering how to migrate a configuration from one Firebox to another using the WatchGuard System Manager Policy Manager application. This video assumes that you've watched the Prepare for Firebox Migration video, as that covers a lot of the details and corner cases you might encounter during the migration process. Let's get started here. I have this old XML file from my previous device. The XML files are stored in your Documents folder, My WatchGuard Configs folder by default. If you don't have any configuration files stored on the computer, you can still try to connect to the old device to grab the configuration. If the box is dead and you do not have any XML files available on any of your management computers, then you will need to start over with your configuration. If you have been using the WatchGuard System Manager Policy Manager to administer your device, you should have plenty of XML files in this folder because it automatically saves local copies of them every time you make a configuration change on the Firebox. The other file I have here is a local copy of the feature key that gets saved automatically with the XML file. If you do not have access to this, it's no big deal. This is simply the key for the old device. All you really need is the XML file when you're doing the migration. The XML file does not store the feature key inside of it. It always writes it to a separate file, but this file is not required. In WatchGuard System Manager, I'm going to launch the Policy Manager application, and I'm going to choose to open a configuration file and then open the XML file that I have. I am already plugged into the new Firebox. It is booted up into a default state, and my computer is connected to interface number 1. I did not need to connect to the Firebox in WSM to complete this process, but if you do so, it should work just fine as well. The first thing I want to do here is go to Setup Feature Keys, and you can see here this is the old T30 device that I am migrating from. And the first thing we'll want to do is click the Remove button to get rid of this feature key. You do need to remove the old feature key before importing a new one. So now that that has been removed, there are two options to get a new feature key loaded into this device. So the first option is to click the Import button. This is what you would use if you were doing a manual import of the feature key, either by copying the text from the website, or if you had a local copy of the feature key, either in a text file or in the compressed format I mentioned earlier. There's also this download option. This does not download from the website. What this does is it opens the feature key from a Firebox on the network. And since I am connected to the new device, which has automatically retrieved its feature key already, I'm going to use this download option to connect to that device and retrieve the feature key. So as you can see here, I have the 10.0.1.1 default IP address, since that's what the device is using. And I'll go ahead and use the read-only passphrase for the status account, since that's also the default. And there we go. Now I have the new T40 feature key pulled into this configuration. So I'll go ahead and click OK. And the next thing you'll want to do is go to Setup, System, and verify the device name. Obviously, now that the model has changed to a T40, I would not want to call the device a T30. So I'll go ahead and update this to something that makes more sense. And there we go. And now I simply need to save to Firebox to write this configuration to this device. So I will use the default admin and read write. And here you can see I'm getting an error regarding the version. And this is because if we look down here in the lower right, this configuration file was built for 12.5.1. But it's saying that this device is running 12.6.4. So I need to change the OS compatibility setting. To do that, I need to go to Setup, OS Compatibility, go over to this drop down and set it to whatever branch of firmware the new device is using. Once that's done, click OK, and now I'll try to save again. And here you can see it's going to overwrite the previous XML, but what I'm going to do is just give it a different name since this is for a different device, and this will also write out that feature key locally so I have a copy of it later. Click Save. It's telling me that the IP address does not match any interfaces, and this is because the IP addresses that I have in this configuration file are not the same as the default IPs that are on the device, so this is expected. I'm trying to load this configuration file because this has all of the network settings I was using on the old device. So I do want to save and update the IP address information, and there we go. Configuration was saved successfully onto the new device. After the configuration file has been saved successfully, I can go over to the network configuration menu, just take a look at the interface that I'm connected to and see what IP it has. Again, this will be the same as your old device. And once I know that IP, I can click on WSM and verify that I can connect to that device. There we go. The configuration migration was successful. I am able to connect to the device. At this point, it would be recommended to change the management user passphrases, which you can do using Policy Manager or the Firebox System Manager. For more information about configuration migration, please use the WatchGuard Technical Search.